everyone, and welcome back to your weekly PlayStation podcast, Talking the PS, where we get together and round up all of the juicy PlayStation and gaming news for your listening or viewing pleasure right here on youtube.com/Helix Plays Games, and also available up there in the digital clouds on your podcast preference of choice. You're joining myself, Chris, alongside my man of many pixels, Mr. Richie. Welcome to the show.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, indeed. Rob isn't here this week. He'll be on XPass yesterday, though, because of just scheduling and work and weekend stuff. But we're here to talk about some amazing PlayStation news, and we have a fantastic show lined up for you all, talking about the future of Marvel games on PlayStation, Spider-Man 2 console, the Project Q Lite has leaked, apparently, and a rumoured PlayStation 5 Pro for November. But before we get into all of that, don't forget to like, subscribe, ring-a-ding-ding that bell so you're kept in the loop with all of the fantastic content we do here on the channel, like this very show, like XPass, our weekly Xbox podcast, our weekly live streams, watch-alongs, and much, much more. We also have a fantastic Discord community full of fantastic gamers just like you. Click in the link below, down in the description, to get in with all those fantastic folks. And of course, special shout out to our wonderful Helix Heroes, the wonderful, wonderful folks who support us that extra little bit further. From as little as 99p, just like you can, they get this very show early, stickers and badges in the chat next to their name, and Richie's eternal, undying, venerable love. Richie.
If my love is undying, does that make me immortal?
No.
Oh, that's a shame.
That is a shame. That is a shame. One can dream. You've got time. You've got time. Of course, everyone, we're going to be talking about PlayStation, but before we do get into all that, we always like to start the shows with recounting the past 7 days and talking about what we've been playing. So, Richie, over to you. What have you been playing this past?
I have sunk my teeth back into Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Yes.
Since I've been back from holiday, I haven't had that much gaming time. We've been quite busy socially. I've been trying to get back to the gym, so it's like Friday night. It's like, right, I actually finally have a good evening of
Good
a
evening.
good... Yeah, good evening. Good evening,
evening.
everyone, if it's evening when you're watching this. But you know, when it's like, right, I finally have a good stretch of time where I can just sit down and just game for a bit. We not have like an hour here, half an hour there. It's just like, okay, I've got like from like 5 p.m. till like 2 a.m.
Yeah,
Let's just go.
I remember those days. 4 or 5 months ago now. I remember them well. I remember them well. So Final Fantasy, of course, you're diving into the remake ahead of Rebirth coming out still.
Yeah, that's the plan. I haven't played the DLC Integrate, despite I have it. So I was saying to myself, probably, and also on talking to the PS, probably for the last year, that I wanted to replay 7 Remake before Rebirth. So I actually started before I went on holiday. Then I went on holiday. So it's like, it's been about 3 weeks since I played it till like before last Friday. And then, yeah, it's like, I mean, it's an amazing game.
Oh, I do not know, but I would imagine it is because it's getting a remake and split into 3 parts. So yeah, that's fantastic. I've been playing Final Fantasy 16. I'm not going to go into any more than I usually have the last few weeks, but I think I'm up to level 42 now. So I feel like I'm reaching the end of the main story. The world map is kind of giving me the inclination I'm reaching the end. But
is it like a level 50 cap or something? Feels like could be a thing.
Who knows? But I'm kind of getting to that point where I'm feeling like the story's wrapping up. Although I did say to you today when we went out to a party that actually every time I go into a new chapter, it unlocks like 4 or 5 more side quests. And one of my bugbears with this game, some of the side quests are weak as anything. I'm finding myself just skipping through a lot of the chatter because I don't care about these side characters. I don't care about the story. They're just getting in the way of the main story, and I'm just get through to them. There's some awkward Square Enix things that happen. You'll probably know this from 7 when they animate so much of it and then give up at certain points. So they'll animate the whole conversation, the movements, the gestures, the body language, and then when they'll go to hand them something, it'll like fade to black. And then you'll hear the noise in the background, like something being cooked or something happening, and then it'll cut back to the next scene of them going, "Thanks for that." And it's like, it's a time-saving technique that seems lazy, or it just makes the game feel a little bit less polished than it should be.
I feel like it's a stylistic choice, but it's a weird one.
Yeah, and there was one moment when I think about a third into the story, I got to a new area, and all of a sudden, when you interact with certain characters, they'd say like the first line of dialogue, like, "Oh, hi there, Clive," and then the rest of their lines would be silent and just to read through. And it only happened in like this 3% portion of the game, and the rest of the game went back to normal. And it was like, what the hell? Did they not have the voice actors for this day of recording or something? really weird. It made me worry that the rest of the game was going to be like reading through.
I wonder if it's like the gaming equivalent of like reshooting a movie, where it's like, we
added this
need to
segment in.
we need to rework some stuff, but we don't have the voice clips. We don't have the time to get the voice actors back in. Oh, we don't want to pay them again.
We've reached their limit, the word count for the day.
And this deep into the game, assuming if all the actors are kind of wrapped on their bits, it might just be a case the voice actor's not even available.
Yeah,
like,
quite
you know what,
possibly.
this deep in the game, no one's going to care that much, apart from Chris.
It was quite jarring when it started happening, but they did remedy it, and I'm absolutely loving it. It's so epic, and it's surprisingly, I'm finding myself thinking it's like so much like Pokemon in a lot of ways. Like, I'm getting little badges when I get to a new area. There's these big crazy fights that happen. There's obviously lots of creatures in the world that are like basically AAA quality rendered versions of like Pokemon animals. Like a Chocobo is no different than a Doduo or something in Pokemon.
Oh yeah, a Chocobo could straight up be a Pokemon.
Yeah, and a lot of the other things I'm interacting with now who have like powers unto themselves, I'm like, yeah, you could just be a Pokemon. And although I'm not catching them, it's got that vibe.
What Pokemon type would a Chocobo be?
It's
got to be flying plus something.
Normal. Yeah. What's the boringest class of them all? Normal.
Normal and flying. All the most of the bird Pokemon.
Yeah. I got another Pokemon card today. I was trying to order, I said last week I got the Charizard one.
Yes.
I only need one shiny Mute to complete the whole set. I'm almost there. Although I did accidentally order the wrong Pikachu, so I got sent this big fat shiny boy. And he's not part of the collection I want, so he's just kind of like a spare fat Pikachu I've got now. And he came with 2 energy cards, just
water ones.
I think
as
they were
well.
sent as like buffers for the card to protect the card in the box. But I digress, folks. We're here to talk about PlayStation, and no doubt I'm hoping a wrap up on Final Fantasy. And I don't know if I'm going to go for the platinum because it needs a whole other playthrough, I've heard. So that's a lot more time I do not have in my life. I'd rather play something else. So we'll see what the urge is like as you head towards Rebirth, of course, coming out. It's a big beginning of next year, right? Rebirth? January?
Yes.
January?
It was originally going to be this year. I think it got pushed back into next year, which is why
sense.
I was planning to do it this year.
Yeah, that makes sense, right? Because I think with 16, you want to give it time to breathe. And did we get Crisis Core as well?
Yeah, Crisis Core earlier in the year, which I haven't played that either.
Yeah, so you kind of want to let the franchise breathe a little bit. You don't want to oversaturate it, like Marvel are doing at the moment, right?
Yeah.
Speaking of Marvel, Richie, if you could introduce us to
the properly prepared PlayStation perusing points, aka the news.
The news. And as always, the news is brought to you by our wonderful Helix Heroes, those fantastic people who support the channel that extra bit more, just like you can from as little as $1 or 99 pence or whatever your local currency equivalent is. You can support myself, Richie, and Rob, bring you better quality content every single week. It keeps us energized, happy, and more importantly, it pays for the podcast distribution. So if you're listening to this on audio feeds, why don't you consider joining and becoming a Helix Hero? And you can enjoy that fantastic quality bitrate coming through your ears right now as you drive to work on a Monday morning. Except for it's Tuesday when this show goes out, so that was wrong. Anyway, Richie.
Members do.
Members can do. Let's talk about what happened this week in PlayStation. Not much realistically in terms of news, so this episode is going to be actually more of a discussion episode, which I know a lot of our viewers and listeners do enjoy. So, in the interest of Marvel, as I allude to there a little bit, we got some big news drop out of San Diego Comic-Con this past week, which it's a bit light on the ground Comic-Con because of the writers' strike at the moment. There's not actually much celebrity presence. I think it's a bit of a subdued one this year. However, Spider-Man showed up and they brought their A game. In particular, Richie, PlayStation, Sony, and Insomniac have announced a brand new PlayStation 5 console that is rendered beautifully to look like Spider-Man/Venom. Reading from the PlayStation blog, what an exciting moment for PlayStation players as the Insomniac team wrapped up at the captivating panel at San Diego Comic-Con with a fantastic reveal of Spider-Man 2. We get a first look at this PS5 console. Marvel's Spider-Man 2 limited edition bundle, which features a custom PS5 console cover design and matching DualSense wireless controller. We're thrilled to debut these stunning designs to our fans and capture the look and feel of Marvel's Spider-Man 2. The threat of Venom and the symbiote will be one of the most formidable challenges that our two Spider-Mans will face in Marvel's Spider-Man 2. That's why we wanted to reflect the intensity of the symbiote and its capacity for transformation and the power with a takeover design for the PS5 and the DualSense controller. So, first things first, Richie. What do you think of this brand new console? The first, I believe, that we've got that isn't just block colour. This is the first one that's had some thought put into it rather than just a paint bucket tool drops onto the plastic.
We should say, me and you were actually talking about this before we hit record. PlayStation are not doing just the consoles now for like limited edition stuff, and I actually think I actually kind of like the fact that the plates are
Mm.
interchangeable because then you don't have if you like, oh, this comes out, it's like, well, I don't need another PlayStation. So if this
Hmm.
was just a PlayStation, then I am definitely not buying it. However, I could be very tempted if I wasn't currently bankrupt to buy this because I think it looks fantastic. It's kind of like it's got like nice red with the white spy logo, but then it's got like the venom tendrils and
Venom.
black kind of creeping over it. It's like such a cool design.
It is, yeah. It's very, very cool. Of course, for anyone who can't remember, we did get a PlayStation 4 Pro in like bright Spider-Man red with just the white logo on, which I thought looked sexy AF. However, this does look cool. Now, I have the original PS5, the white one, and as much as it fits with the aesthetic of my room, it does look cool, this one. And what I do really appreciate is they are selling the plates separately
Yes,
as well, which is very, very un-Sony-like to not have our eyeballs out by forcing us to buy the console. They're just allowing us to buy the plates. So that is pretty damn cool.
now we don't know how much the plates will cost for this, but the other plates they already have in the store about $44.99 in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
So if we just assume probably about the same, I'd assume the same price.
You would hope.
You never know because if it being if it's a limited run, there might be slightly more, but I doubt it. I think it'd be 50 quid max.
Yeah, like a markup almost.
But it still feels a little bit expensive for what as awesome as it looks.
Yeah.
For me, if it was 30 quid, I think I'm buying it.
Mm.
It's not even that much of a price drop. It just needs a little bit.
A little bit more, that little bit more.
Yeah.
So part of that is we are getting a PS5 bundle with the game, no doubt. The faceplates and the controller purchasable as separate as well, so that you can buy all these entities individually. Pre-orders begin on July 28th, so if you're listening to this show later on this week, that's available in UK, France, Germany, US, Belgium, Luxembourg, Netherlands, Italy, Spain, Austria, and Portugal. So selected countries around the world. And of course, Spider-Man 2 releases October 20th, so we're not that far out anymore, Richie, which, in light of a console and all these extra accoutrements that we've got, we also did actually get a new trailer, a story trailer for Spider-Man 2. And what we saw in that trailer was a bit more insight into the characters, I guess you would say, and what we expected to see as part of the new upcoming game. Did you get a chance to check out the trailer?
I actually haven't. I completely missed the trailer for the game. I saw the console stuff. I didn't see the trailer for the game.
Oh, well, you'll have to definitely check that out now. So as part of the trailer, we basically see a bit more of Venom. There's a bit of story, a bit of dialogue back and forth between like Miles, MJ, Peter. We get introduced to Harry Osborn as well, so we haven't seen him yet, other than in spoilers for the first game. If anyone's not played it, he's in the audio logs, and at the very, very end, we kind of see elements of him. Spoilers again. In a kind of like a Bacta tank, I guess, and he's in there with the venom of symbiote of some sort. So he's not very well. We don't.
I think in the first game, it's kind of hint. I think Norman Osborn and like Harry's like audio logs kind of suggest that he was abroad on
studying away,
studying abroad, and that's why he's not about. But then you get the reveal at the end where it's like, oh no, it's.
Something's up, yeah. And this game seemingly focuses on, as we know, two Spider-Men, so we get to play as Miles and Peter sporadically throughout the story. How do you feel about the new faces of them? Because this is getting some kind of pick-up online, is that Miles, it's obviously I think it's a few years later, the game is set. So we've got Peter, obviously it's the new version of Peter, so anyone who only played the original PS4 version looks nothing like him. They totally did the reface model. We've got Miles aged up as well, new haircut, and we've got MJ also looking a lot older, not too similar to her. In a weird way, I think the character of Harry actually looks a lot like the original Peter. So we've got this weird, like, similarity that a lot of the two of them look very, very similar in my books. But the game just looks gorgeous. That's all I took away. It's just like, it's going to be so damn good. So damn good.
I know, I can't wait.
And I guess that what brings us into the topic of the whole show, in the light of very little news this week, is we wanted to kind of focus on the future of Marvel games. We know we've got Spider-Man 2 imminently on the horizon, web-slinging in to blow our minds, no doubt. And I think we wanted to just go through the future games that Marvel have got coming out. Not necessarily PlayStation exclusive, but we've got a few of them in the pipeline now, Richie. We've got Wolverine coming from Insomniac. We've got Black Panther, which we discussed on last week's show, from the new EA Cliffhanger Game Studio. We've got a Captain America and Black Panther game set in the 1940s from Skydance and Amy Hennig. her game. We've got an Iron Man game coming from EA. And then we've kind of got whatever else is on the works out there with Marvel games and Disney. And I'm sure we'll probably get a Marvel Ultimate Alliance 4, 5? Which one are we up to? 4?
I don't know. I can't.
We'll get one of them.
I don't pay that much attention
on
to
the Switch at some point.
Yeah.
And you've got Marvel Snap, of course, to catch up on still. So I'm sure that'll come around. But in light of all that, then I wanted to just spend some time focusing on the future. So Spider-Man 2 is the next one in the pipeline. We've known about that for a long, long time. It's going to be no doubt more of the same, but with the tweaks of what we've seen in it. We're going to get to play as Venom or with Venom powers at some point. That looks really, really cool. I'm sure that's going to mix up the fight style a little bit. We're going to probably spend some time as Miles. If anyone who played the Spider-Man Miles Morales kind of mini game, not mini game, that's doing it a disservice, but like
it's a full game. It's just shorter.
Yeah, shorter experience. Yeah, there's a lot to take away in there in terms of the characters, but focusing on the wider world, the next touch point is Insomniac are also working on Wolverine. So to throw it over to you, Richie, what would you like to see from the Wolverine game? And do you think we'll get a cameo in Spider-Man 2? Maybe it's like an Easter egg near the end or a reference to our Saber guy.
I'm not sure, because with Wolverine, you could set pretty much it in any era.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you really could.
Wolverine, notoriously
in
quite
space.
old. He is Wolverine, very old. Part of
Mm-hmm.
his abilities give him long age, because wasn't he like involved in things like the American Civil War and stuff?
Yeah,
like,
if you watch Origins, it shows your whole timeline of them. And in the Wolverine, he's at Hiroshima when the nuke goes off. So
yeah, I mean, I'm not a comic guy, so I don't know what his origins are in terms of the comics of when he was first ever became an adult. So it'd be interesting to see how they handle it, and because this is effectively a new clean slate for Marvel, so
yeah.
they're not beholden to what the films are doing, they're not beholden to what the comics are doing. They can basically rewrite his origin story, take the key elements, if the adamantium and all that sort of stuff. So I'm not sure when you do it. I think you could get a cameo. I'm not sure it would be Wolverine. It'd be interesting to see a cameo from a different X-Man.
Mm-hmm.
One that may work into the story. I kind of want this to be a game before Wolverine joins the X-Men.
Yeah, well, that's the thing we don't really know anything about. Is one, will it be set in and around New York? Because we know Xavier's mansion is just kind of, I think it's West. Is it called West something? I can't remember. If you give me yeah, that sounds right. Yeah, that's why I'm thinking probably getting West. It's not too far from Manhattan, so I don't think Insomniac will be that daft to reutilize the New York map again. I would rather take us elsewhere in the States or in the past, and like you said, tell a story with him.
Doesn't Wolverine have links to Canada, so they might set it up in Canada somewhere?
Quite possibly. Sabretooth, they could use him as kind of an enemy potentially.
But you basically just take the rough kind of idea behind Origins, but just do it not crap.
Yeah, well,
keep Deadpool out of it, just
for now. But
don't sew up his mouth.
Like you said, all we've seen really is in the trailer they showed us was he's in a bar, someone comes in and he fights, and thankfully bars haven't really looked that different in the last 100 years. As long as you don't get any electronics in there, it's just wood, sticky floors. Yeah. Someone serving drinks and a pool table usually is give or take what you have to make it look like a bar. So they could have some fun with that one. So you don't think it's going to be massively tied to Insomniac Spider-Man? They're not going to create a little mini Marvel world here?
I think they could. And they could very much just keep their options open though, by you could go, yeah, it's in the same world, but if Wolverine's they're off doing something completely in a different part of the world. But I think you want to probably avoid an MCU situation, because then, especially if Insomniac had the license to all Marvel properties, I think you could do it. But then if the Iron Man, for example, isn't a completely different universe, you start getting quite fractured, and so it's the kind of Sony Spider-Man thing versus the MCU. It starts getting a bit, which is what's canon for what. You want to avoid that kind of mess.
Yeah,
and if you could just keep it contained. And it gives you the option as well that if you want to work Wolverine into the Spider-Man universe, you can keep your options open.
Yeah, I agree. And we said kind of like last week regarding the Black Panther, even just having two Black Panther titles could be quite confusing from an optics standpoint, from marketing, depending on the gameplay when they come out. They are going to be compared to each other. And it's interesting enough, a lot of the coverage over the last week, I've listened to a lot of podcasts from like IGN and kind of funny stuff. None of them have acknowledged the Amy Hennig game. It's like everybody's forgot and they think the Amy Hennig game was like a rumor. And then the actual, we know it was announced. We spoke about it last week, but I'm saying all these like official channels, even like the news articles from the main outlets like Eurogamer and stuff, they talk about the new announcement, and none of them say this is separate from the Amy Hennig Skydance game. And it's quite crazy that people kind of like, that was the first thing I thought. Haven't we already had that game announced? Looked into it, and went, oh, it's a different game, but it's Black Panther still. So Either way, we digress. In terms of the Wolverine game, though, Richie, what are you expecting to see out of it? Are you thinking like boots on the ground, like single player, like really like focused chapters, or are you wanting more open world exploration similar to Spider-Man? Because Insomniac's wheelhouse to do a bit of everything.
I hope they don't try to make the world too open and too big, where you start getting blank. The content gets a bit bland. What works quite well for Spider-Man is because it's set in basically just Manhattan. Manhattan, it's a big place. I've been there recently. But in terms of a game world, it's not so unmanageable for you to like explore it properly. I don't want to see a situation where you get these like absolutely like what you'd expect from something like an Elder Scrolls is absolutely cataclysmically huge world where you just go, oh god, how am I going to find time this? Yeah, so it can be open, but just don't overdo it. Sometimes less is more. I think with open worlds, and this might be just getting old talking and just having less time on my hands, but.
Too much. And obviously with Spider-Man, you have the verticality of the city as well. Like, Logan is very much boots on the ground. You can get Colossus to throw him as far as he can, but you are limited to maybe groundwork or maybe going in one or two buildings.
In terms of tone, I would actually look at the Logan movie. Doesn't necessarily have to be Old Man Logan, but if you look at that movie, how kind of like brutal it was.
Yeah.
That's what I kind of want. I want that kind of visceral.
Well, it is 18, right? Like R-rated 18 from what I recall. I feel like it was.
Is that confirmed?
I feel like it was.
I mean, great, because that's what you kind of want.
I want severed limbs. The guy's got adamantium claws for hands. I want to see him chopping legs off.
Almost like, like Ghost of Tsushima, where sometimes the action's quite snappy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing I want, but like obviously he's fighting up close and with his claws, bit brutal, like.
So if they do go down that route, Richie, I don't know if you've played it, but there was a Wolverine game that came out on the PS3. I believe it was done by Activision, actually. But we won't talk about Activision this week. That is one thing we will stay away from.
Yeah.
And what was really cool is your health bar. When it got worked down, basically he ended up going from Logan to blood and muscle to adamantium skeleton, and then when you took a pause, it grew back. And that was your health meter. And I was like, imagine if Insomniac with like today's graphics, you're getting like shot at or blown up or something, and there was just chunks of him missing. But as like another 60 seconds of the game passed, it just like healed itself back up, and you're like, right, I'm back to being me. Imagine just running around as an adamantium skeleton, like because you're nearly dead, but you're like, well, you're not dead, but you know what I mean.
Well,
so cool.
Do we know he's going to have a skeleton?
Well,
we've seen the claws, haven't we, in the trailer?
But that's just a teaser trailer. They could do a lot between then and now, couldn't they? Just to say like,
It'd be quite an interesting thing if that bar scene was actually at the end of the game, and the whole story that you're playing through is how he basically becomes Weapon X. So it almost ends up with him getting it, and that's kind of then the last chapter of the game is like now you have the metal claws. Before that, you're all bone.
It could be, but I do prefer adamantium Logan to bone. Well, you can't cut through as many things with bone. It's just not as cool as like slicing through a pipe or a car or anything. If maybe like, snapped a nail. Maybe
there's a point like in the halfway, or maybe after the first couple of chapters, after the first like story arc in the game, that's when he becomes it. It'd be quite interesting to see like that kind of story, how he becomes Weapon X. How could you tell that in a game where you've actually got a bit more room to breathe than you would have in the movie?
Yeah. Well, you do, because even though he's in Deadpool, we're very much like absent of Wolverine content right now and X-Men content. So they've
Yeah,
got like this perfect opportunity maybe in the next couple of years. Although Deadpool obviously is coming out, we know what Deadpool is. It's just Ryan Reynolds having fun with his mate Hugh Jackman. In terms of the gaming world, though, it has been a minute, and I'd love to see what I fully trust Insomniac as well to make one hell of a game with this.
they proved the worth of Spider-Man. They've
Yeah,
already proved it. Like when the Wolverine was announced, and somebody was like, "Yep, you guys do what you do your thing."
absolutely. And last week we spoke about the Black Panther game. We got the announcement. We spoke about what the two differences were and what we're expecting. I think our big overall arc is just all of Wakanda. Like embrace it. Like give it a full
Yeah.
breathable world. We meet the locals. We meet other characters from the Black Panther comics, and just introduce us to everything that is about that. The technology, and he's got such almost like a Batman approach with he's got his tech, he's got his strength, but then you've got like the
They could have
ethereal
stealthy
plane.
stuff.
You can do
Yeah.
anything. He's very versatile as a character and as a hero, so they could do a lot with that.
Well, you can make your free talent trees very easy. You got like the mystical stuff with the ethereal plane and stuff.
Yeah,
Then you got the tech. There's two talent trees, and then maybe like stealth, where it's
yeah,
more of like a feline approach to his self. You could get the stray guys involved. They know how to do
yeah.
cats.
He just goes around knocking shit off the shelves in Wakanda
Yeah,
and licking himself.
like prowling, like kind of prowling through like
Yeah,
trees and stuff to stalk his prey.
yeah, that could be very
Yeah,
cool. Again, don't know how the Captain America one's going to kind of tie in the 1940s. We might go hunt some Nazis as Black Panther. That could be cool.
this is
We'll see.
this is the thing. Like with the two Black Panthers, well, I mean, one's Captain America and Black Panther.
Hmm.
You could have just literally different characters with them. In the 1940s, it's unlikely to be T'Challa.
Yeah. Well, I did see something. I think it was Janet Garcia on Kind of Funny was saying that imagine if you died and it took you to the ethereal plane and you came back as a different re-embodied Black Panther. So there was like almost like a roguelike element where if you die, your Black Panther's done, T'Challa's done, you come back as the next one or something. Play the
I'm
long
not
game.
sure. I'm not sure I like that for these games, but
Hmm.
that there's a cool concept that could be work if you design like if you literally went, this is a roguelike from the ground up, but it's going to be Black Panther.
Hmm. I don't know how many
But
iterations there are of Black Panther, but it's certainly interesting to see a character that's been quite non-existent, I think, from the comics, like without
is it?
reading the comics, to like how forefront it is in pop culture now. It's great.
Yeah,
Um,
I think Black Panther. I do genuinely believe that Black Panther was meant to be the next Iron Man for the MCU.
hmm.
Whereas, like, okay, we're going to sunset Iron Man, and who's going to be the face? Black Panther. It seemed to be that's where Marvel was setting up. Unfortunately, Chadwick Boseman lost his life, so that probably changed the plans a
Oh,
bit.
undoubtedly.
But
And we know with Spider-Man, Tom Holland, I think he would have been their second choice, but he's tied up with Sony licensing and how many movie agreements they can get. But
yeah,
movies aside, though, back to the games. We know we've got an Iron Man game coming from EA. We've already had an Iron Man VR game for PSVR. Originally came out by Camouflage, who I think are now owned by Meta, if I'm correct. Unfortunately, and we got one back in the PS3, Xbox 360 era as well. And played pretty good, but it was very much like a movie tie-in. I think it was around Iron Man 2, the movie came out. And I think Iron Man, again, in terms of video games, lends himself so well to it because just by nature of what he is, he's got gadgets, he's got a cocky personality, he'll probably be voiced by Nolan North, and he basically gets to fly around. So you've got that verticality we spoke about with Spider-Man. But I guess in terms of Iron Man, like what story would you want an Iron Man game to tell? Because we know they can do the flying. Because you've played Anthem, right? You played the
yeah.
demo for Anthem. Is that works? So how would you encompass a story into it?
I'm not sure. Again, because it's a new Iron Man. They're probably going to want to tell an origin story to set this character up, and I think as well by running a new origin story, it helps you differentiate from the comics, from the TV shows, from the MCU, to really establish a new Iron Man.
Mm.
So you want to probably start with an origin story, but make it as different as you can get away with from the MCU origin
Mm.
story.
It's
I'm
such
not
a
sure
shame.
what I want, but it's like, yeah. Well, even I could in my head now, I've just got like, yeah, instead of like having a tech tree, like as you get talent points, maybe like throughout the game, you upgrade your suit as you go.
Mm.
So, oh, that'd be cool. So, if you could like, as you upgrade the suit, you make an upgrade the suit, the physical look of the suit changes over time based on the upgrades you
Ooh,
put in.
yeah. I mean, yeah, you've got the asset tree. Like, I don't want it to happen, but
Yeah.
microtransactions are there. Like, just the amount of like Mark 576 on Season Pass 39. It's
Oh,
ripe for the picking. I just hope they don't do it that way.
what if, like, in some games you can just have a few different preset loadouts, and as
Hmm.
you level up, you can sometimes unlock new ones, so you can switch between them. What if you
Yeah.
could build multiple suits,
Well, you
and then
kind
you
of, yeah.
in game you could you could jump out the suit, call them back in, so you could build a Hulk Buster. You could build like almost like a War Machine style suit, and then you could build a more standard Iron Man kind of suit. So you could do all
Hmm.
this kind of stuff, but have it as customizable as possible.
That would be cool. Like we're going to see a little bit in Armored Core later this year from Software's game,
Yeah.
where yeah, your mech you're going to be able to customize and load out differently for the purpose. But we had it a little bit in Marvel Avengers. Like you could call in the Hulkbuster suit as like your special, and it was so
Yeah.
cool. Like that moment, like right, I'm being beaten up a little bit. I need that extra little bit of strength for just a small window to thin out the crowd of enemies. Call it in, you're good to go. Kick shit, kick ass, and then
That'd be quite cool if you had like your base, and like where you can wander around just as Tony Stark, and this is where you're going to build and upgrade your suits, and then you got it's almost like mission based. So okay, I got he's my mission. Let's drop in. Let's drop into that like world, a bit like Metal Gear Solid 5 actually, where there was a
mm,
couple like fairly large open world maps, but you could have a handful of different things, and that's how you could tell the story. But then when you're out in the field, you can just summon another, call Veronica, drop another suit in.
yeah. It's an interesting one, and a lot of these games, like let's be realistic, a lot of these games are probably going to struggle with the uncanny valley like image likeness. I think we're getting the further we get away from like Marvel MCU Endgame, the easier it will be for people. But we all remember what happened with Avengers, and when the first reveals happened at E3, and everyone kind of looked at it and thought, "You don't look like Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Hemsworth and
I
Chris
think the
Evans."
trick is to make them not go as far away from it as you can get away with while
Mm,
still looking like the character. If you go too close,
yeah,
then when it starts speaking, if you make it look like Robert Downey Jr. and when it starts speaking, it's Nolan North, that's going to be a bit weird.
yeah. I
So you need to just like it has to look like Iron Man, but not like Downey Jr.
It's very catch-22, isn't it? Because I think the Iron Man from the movies, the helmet looks the best of them all. I think the comic book version looks a bit basic. And like you said, the benefit I think Spider-Man has above all else is because he's in the suit for a lot of the time.
Yeah,
And there's a lot of like, I don't know about you, but I feel like there's been more Spider-Man cartoon shows growing up. So I feel like it was very...
we're
there was always
accustomed
different
to
versions.
different actors in the role. I mean,
That
in our
too, yeah.
lifetime,
That too.
in the movies, well, technically they're all now in the same universe, but
Yeah.
like we have literally 3 Spider-Men who are very distinct. How good those!
It
Like,
was. It was.
having all 3 of
No
them,
Way
man.
Home.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
No Way Home
it's
was.
just so good.
And I mean, yeah, I mean, technically, yeah, all the other Spider-Man games are now canon with Insomniacs, maybe in a way, because Into the Spider-Verse had the Spider-Man from PlayStation in Into the Spider-Verse. So these technically
Did.
part of the movies, and then
I need to watch Across the Spider-Verse.
I know,
still need to
I
see
do
that.
as well. I do as well. If it's still on the cinema, I'm down for going if you can find a window. But
I think it's coming to Disney Plus soon, if not already out.
no, it's Sony, so it won't be.
Oh, Sony.
Yeah, it'll be on Netflix in like a year. But in terms of these games, though, yeah, there's obviously going to be that barrier to overcome. I do think Iron Man, because of the mask, might benefit. My flip side is the side characters. And again, who can you get? Who can you use? How can you tell a story? And do we want these games to be too similar? And part of me does actually just miss the movie tie-in games. Like, if they just went back and went, right, Iron Man, we are making the original Iron Man movie beat for beat, but every action thing you get to play as a level. We've got Robert Downey Jr. voice actors in. It's the likeness. Like, if they could just sort that out. Because let's face it, Richie, you know the Return of the King and Two Towers game from back in the day with Ian McKellen and stuff doing voiceover. It just works. But you just don't get that nowadays.
What they managed in them games, though, is they managed to establish he's a core set of mechanics, and you played through certain scenes.
Yeah.
With movie tie-ins, one of the problems I think is half the mechanics usually felt a bit half-baked,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden you're just playing it feels like you're playing suddenly just a different game entirely because that's what the scene dictated.
Yeah. And they were
Look,
rushed to get out for the deadline. That's the problem.
GoldenEye on the N64, they did the same thing as the Middle Earth game, the Lord of the Rings games, where it's like, here's your core mechanics. We'll find a way to work this into the narrative,
Mm.
but this is the mechanics.
Yeah.
So they put the gameplay up front and center rather than necessarily the story. But yeah.
So that's one of them. They are the games we know about. So Spider-Man, Wolverine, Black Panther, Captain America and Black Panther, and an Iron Man game. I'm sure we'll probably get some more. But as we're talking about Marvel and the future of Marvel games on PlayStation, I kind of wanted to delve into the skeptical, the tinfoil hat people, conspiracies, or basically hopes and dreams of what we want. Those are the ones that I think will probably repeat and repeat and repeat. However, we've been on many of our shows big advocates of thinking like, how could they branch out and how could they do something different? And I kind of want to just explore maybe what the future of Marvel games could be in terms of branching out. So we'll go back and forth. If you've got ideas, feel free to bring to the table. My first one we talked about a little bit pre-show, and both of us got like very excited at the concept very quickly. And it was like, we've got Blade coming in the MCU. We know that they've cast him. We don't know what the hell that's going to look like. But in terms of a video game, for PlayStation fans, take the fighting mechanics of Ghost of Tsushima with that samurai blade, all those different stances. Take that, pop it in a city, and let me hunt vampires. That's all I need, and I'm in. Give me a cool story around blade hunting vampires. Different mechanics for maybe nighttime, daytime, similar to Dying Light. You could have a cool back and forth there where there's certain things you can't do at certain points of the day. Give me silver bullets, give me a gun, and let me just go out and fight Ghost of Tsushima style vampires. I would lap that up. And I'm not like a massive... Like, I watched the Wesley Snipes movies. I thought they were decent. The first one, I think, was probably the best. But we've got nothing for Blade. Like, Blade is a dormant IP for Marvel. And he was in Midnight Suns. He got, like, a little bit of a reprise there.
It feels like it's on the comeback. I think with Blade needs to be M-rated. Like,
undoubtedly.
I think that's one of the things why they've probably stayed away from for like the MCU for quite a while, because it's difficult to do.
Yeah.
In the kind of Disney Marvel kind of MCU, fairly safe kind of way. Like, you kind of need this guy chopping people up.
Oh, absolutely. You need those severed limbs. And, well, to be fair, vampires, when he cuts them, they kind of dissolve away, usually, don't they, into, like, that sparkly light. So you could have, like, the violence, but without the blood. Although it gets to vampires, you need blood in some degree.
Go slightly survival. Take some ideas out of survival horror stuff and work it into. If you took some of that kind of survival horror stuff from, like, Resident Evil, and work that into a Ghost of Tsushima style game.
Yeah.
So stuff like, things like, silver bullet, going to be limited. So you need to pick your battles. You can't just kill every single... When you wander around the streets at night, you can't just take down every single vampire you see.
Daywalker.
Yeah.
But I just think, it'd be cool. And I'm thinking in my head, maybe like Shadow of Mordor style, like quick, fast pace, like, because you can zip around quite quick, Blade, as well. So
yeah.
Fast pace, sword fights, and then, you've got obviously the brute strength he's got. Maybe a bit of like traversal similar to like Arkham Asylum, Arkham Knight, where we're exploring part of the city. We're doing investigation work, like finding out who killed these humans, where these blood banks are. Like, you could clear out blood banks in a city, could be like your Ubisoft area.
Yeah.
Sneak in, do some stealth, clear all the vampires out, and then you've emptied the blood bank and you've saved a couple of humans who are strapped up being drained. That could be cool. But I just think there's something there with that IP where I feel like it would work.
With Insomniac Spider-Man, where you had to sometimes take out like the towers with like the bases.
You could
like
have that kind of condensed areas.
Yeah, that lends itself quite nicely. So you could do kind of open world, and then go like do the Insomniac Spider-Man. Man, is so good because you have that open world, which is okay. Here's a sandbox. Go have fun, swing around the city, do these side missions and stuff. But then it pulls you into the linear narrative stuff for like usually probably sometimes maybe an hour or two at these stretches, these kind of chapters. Like do that with Blade. Just that would be awesome.
Because as I said, he was in Midnight Suns, as were a couple of other characters we've not seen for some time. But I don't know about you, but Midnight Suns seemed to have came and went. Like it didn't get. Obviously, it was from the XCOM guys for Axis, and
I think the kind of niche. It's not a genre game that is like going to sell millions upon millions and millions of copies, but they are very much beloved by the people who are into them.
Yeah, because they had like Ghost Rider and Doctor Strange, and these are characters like we've only ever seen really in terms of Marvel in the Lego games. Yet they all have like they're all so like well-known household names now. It's actually crazy that we haven't got Disney breaking out and doing more. Like, I mean, we might be on the cusp of that. That could be the reality. Black Panther, Iron Man, like we could just be getting a slew of games. We've seen it with Star Wars games happen as well.
So, as I said to you before we started recording, when we are talking about this segment, I was thinking rather than just taking the IP and figuring what would do for the IP, I decided to try and think of what would I do. I'll go like maybe I'll pick a genre of game and then find the IP that could suit.
Mm.
And you've just clicked it. I thought like you take a turn-based like JRPG style, and how could you make a Marvel game out of that? Doctor Strange, 100% could work.
Take your turn, use the spells.
Yeah, and yet you can have a party with other like members of like things like one could turn up, other people from the comics. I think there's something there.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff we're talking about, I feel could really benefit, similar to how we both really enjoyed Hogwarts Legacy earlier this year, where I've not really been able to see these places realized and lived in outside of the movies. Like, let me go explore the Sanctum Sanctorum. Let me go into Iron Man's Malibu home, Stark Tower. Let me explore these places, because like even in Spider-Man, you only really get to just wander around. You don't get to explore Peter's apartment. Not that it's that great, but I feel like there's all these great locations. Asgard. Let me go to Asgard and explore like the halls of kings and stuff, and yet we're just limited to what we've got because of the way that the games have rolled out. So Blade's mine, Doctor Strange definitely one in there. Anything else you'd like to bring to the table in terms of Marvel games before we move on to the couple of new subjects of the week?
I mean, you've made a note of like a Spider-Man spin-off game, which give it Insomniac. Yeah, if you want to, if you want to eventually replace Peter Parker with Miles, and you want to bring a sidekick in for Miles, and you just want to kind of keep that conveyor belt of Spider-Man going, Spider-Gwen could be the next clear one.
Well, yeah, I thought Miles broke
Yeah.
like really good ground, and I think, as you said earlier, like
Yeah.
a shorter game. I've really found with like Uncharted Lost Legacy, these AAA games, I'm quite happy to have a shorter story with a smaller turnaround time. If it's every 2 years, I would happily have, if at the end of Spider-Man 2 there was some teaser or something, or maybe introduction of Spider-Gwen, Gwen Stacy, and she's in the character, she's with Miles. We know from Into the Spider-Verse, she's becoming very, very pop culture relevant at the moment. Voiced by Haley Steinfeld in there as well, who plays Kate Bishop in Hawkeye. So you've got like this interesting Marvel kind of connection going on. And yet, give me a smaller story, focus on Gwen. Let's get a female protagonist front and center representing the Spider-Man brand. And yeah, I think it would be cool for like another like just 10, 15 hour experience maybe in the same city, but some different moves. Could be cool.
Part of me feels like Peter Parker's going to die in Spider-Man 2.
Yeah, I do as well. They gave him a new face and then they killed him off.
It feels nicely set up where he's now kind of been the mentor to like Miles. We already knew he was already established from the first game. He was already an established Spider-Man at that point. And then if he dies in the fight against Venom, and then the story centers, then Miles becomes the emotional heart of the story, and like how he has to step up going into whatever Spider-Man 3 is.
Absolutely.
And that's where you could work Spider-Gwen into it from there. Like,
yeah. I think we'll be many, many years off potentially, but I think it could work quite well. We've obviously had in the past as well other games. We've had a Deadpool game, actually really, really good, made by Activision again, not available on the storefronts now. That was one of those, when people say about digital games, it got pulled due to licensing issues. So there's a fantastic Deadpool game out there, just like a hack and slash mess around fun. Nolan North doing the voice of Deadpool, of course. Very witty, lots of funny comedy in there. And yeah, it's just a really good like old school game.
I think you could get actually Ryan Reynolds in for something like that.
You probably could.
I think you might. It feels like he'd probably be willing, as long as the money's right and he's got the time. But
he did Free Guy. That's a big video game centric movie that did really well. So he's obviously into that kind of world a little bit. He did Detective Pikachu, so he's aware of gaming and pop culture. So yeah, maybe a Deadpool of some sort, maybe spin off of Wolverine. Who knows the way the movies go? One of my big ones I've always been a big fan of ever since the Netflix Daredevil series was give me Daredevil. Take the Arkham City, Arkham Asylum style and just do that. Give me his batons, give me some kind of echolocation sensory thing, plonk me in the city, fighting Kingpin and his thugs, boots on the ground, fight style. Give me it.
For me, this is very similar to what I would do with Blade. Like Daredevil, I do a similar sort of game. Different like themes, like Blade is obviously going to be more horror focused. And, well, actually, with Daredevil, you already have Manhattan.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's weird because it sounds like I want the same thing over and over again. But the story could be the differentiating factor in all of this.
And the thing is, with Deadpool, although you already have Manhattan, you're going to experience it in a very different way because it's going to be very much boots on the ground
Yeah.
rather than swinging through the sky. So you could even just take like the Hell's Kitchen area and really go granular with it.
There's so many. Any particular standout ones for you then that you're thinking? You got Hulk, Thor, you've got the Guardians of the Galaxy, which I thoroughly love. I've got the Platinum Trophy for Guardians of the Galaxy. It was a great game from Square Enix. And then they sold off Adios Montreal to Embracer Group, so the studio who made that game. They're probably not going to be doing a sequel, unfortunately.
Square have got this weird thing where I think they overestimate their own sales and they get disappointed by them. I think that's where Guardians has fallen. Like they did things with like Tomb Raider and stuff and Hitman, where it's like, yeah, it's not everything's going to sell like Final Fantasy VII remake. Like that is the remake of a special game that you absolutely nailed. Like, I've heard something like there was a bit There's rumors that they're disappointed in the sales of Final Fantasy 16.
Yeah.
Like, are you nuts?
Yeah,
Like,
it sold like 3 million units, which when there's only how many, I think 30 million PlayStation 5s in the wild, so 10% of your
potential install base.
That's awesome numbers.
And bear in mind, a lot of these people who have these PlayStations only play Call of Duty, or only play Madden, or only play FIFA. Not everyone's going to be people are just going to go, I'm not interested in Final Fantasy, and be turned off of it. That you would have been in the past. If we weren't doing this show, you probably would not have played it.
No, probably
because
not.
we wouldn't have talked about it as much, anywhere near as much as we actually have.
No, probably not. I would have just skipped and went past it. But yeah, Square Enix, such an enigma. Yeah. But yeah, I recommended the Guardians game to you. I think it came to Game Pass, didn't it? But you were in the middle of something else.
Yeah, I just never got around to it. I don't know what it was about. It wasn't like the Uncanny Valley thing. I just felt like at the time it just didn't really appeal to me.
It was Christmas as well. It came out a busy period.
I think I was playing other stuff. I was like, okay, I'll play it at some point, and I probably will. I actually forgot it existed.
Such a shame. But the
you can't play everything. No. Can't play everything.
In terms of Uncanny Valley, though, aside from Peter, the rest of them you kind of overlook because Gamora's green, Rocket's a raccoon, Groot's a tree. So in terms of Uncanny Valley, there's not actually much of the cast who you can get hung up on. Okay, it doesn't look like Chris Pratt, but after a while, you really don't care. Like with most things. But yeah, so Guardians, I'd love to see a sequel, but I think we're probably not going to. I think the formula worked for the game, but yeah. A couple of other ones we got back in the day for movie tie-ins, Richie. We got a Thor movie tie-in. We got for PS3. We got a Hulk movie tie-in. What do you think? Lightning God running around smashing shit up? Is the space for that in the video game world?
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, you can do so much with Thor. Like, you could bring Sakaar in. Imagine if you go to Sakaar, but then once you've done like the missions on Sakaar, then you unlock the Colosseum,
the arenas. Yeah.
So now you just got these arena fights. I was actually doing in Final Fantasy VII. Actually, there is like an arena thing, and just every now and again you just get some new missions, so you can go and it's like, okay, pick. You have to fight this set of enemies, but you only have to pick 2 party members. I'll have these kind of different modifiers and stuff.
Yeah,
you could easily do that with Sakaar.
Well, yeah, that's back to your point of like the Final Fantasy style of, I mentioned pre-show that some of the icon powers that you have in the game are very much like elemental based things, and there's lightning powers in the game, and there's a lot of the scenes that are happening where like bolts are coming down, and it just looks like the scene from Ragnarok with the music playing, din 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 din, and it just looks like that. And I'm playing it thinking like, if I just had a hammer with God of War Return Mjolnir mechanics and let me fight shit tons of, give me that superhero trip where I don't care about being like killed. I don't want like a Dark Souls game. I just want to beat the shit out of anyone and everything and feel like a damn god. And that's cool enough for me in a video game.
I know how you do it as well without making it completely overpowered, because you can't just give the player access to all of Thor's abilities all the time, because then the game's just going to be bland, really. Yeah. But in Final Fantasy VII Remake, like, it's basically semi-turn based, so you are there. It plays just like a hack and slash, quite much. Yeah. Doing your classic dodge, parries, basic attacks, but you have a bar, and when your bar's full, that's when you can go into the menu and use one of your abilities.
Right.
You could do that with Thor.
So much potential, Richie. So much potential, and
but give me the God of War axe style. the
That's
Leviathan axe.
satisfying when it comes back, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, so good, so good. And who knows, we might even see another Avengers movie somewhere down the line, but it's good to know as gamers we'll be eating well for the next decade or so with these particular titles. And we won't have to wait too long for some new hardware to power that up, supposedly. So moving away from Marvel, we would love you to let us know in the comments below what you'd like to see from an upcoming Marvel game as well. Give us your favourite superhero, pictures your game down below in the comments. But between that and what else there is to play the game on, I hope to be playing it on the Project Q Lite, which we know is official. It was announced at the showcase. Just before we actually went live recording the show, there was an article that came out saying it's appeared to leak online. We've got some footage via Twitter of an individual that's seemingly in a hotel with a prototype version of the Q Lite, basically showcasing it off. We know what it looks like. It's just a split DualSense with a chunky screen in the middle, and it looks quite interesting. It's kind of what I expected from it. Nothing too crazy, nothing too shocking. But the rumor is it's going to be out by Christmas this year. And as someone who's currently chipping away at Final Fantasy side missions using my phone and my backbone, this has got me interested. And is it a surprise that we're seeing prototype? I do feel like the idiot who's recorded this is going to get caught because the first shot has a QR code with a serial number on it. So whoever's unit this is, you're going to get caught, unfortunately, my friend. But what do you think of it?
It looks legit. My issue with the Q Lite is it's remote. It's a remote play device.
Yeah.
And I've got a feeling it's going to be a very expensive remote play device.
Quite possibly.
If it did cloud gaming properly as well as remote play, because at the moment, cloud gaming and PlayStation, we've talked about this loads of times, you can get up to PS4 and then PS5 games aren't on the cloud yet. If
they are confirmed to be coming, though.
Yeah, if they are confirmed to be coming. But if they just went, right, for now, you'll get basically you can use remote play on it. You can use cloud gaming on it up to PS4. Remote play gets you your PS5 games.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I want.
Yeah, I don't want to be beholden to my console still.
Yeah, I mean it's not going to be I'm guessing you're not going to be downloading games on this. Ideally, have the option to put a SIM card in, optional. So if I could just pop a SIM card in, now I've got mobile data on the thing. That'd be perfect.
Yeah, well, it looks like from the device, from the leaked images, it virtually only looks like we've got what we expected.
It's an Android tablet with two halves of a DualSense stuck on it.
Yeah, the prototype looks like all it's got from the images is kind of like Wi-Fi tests, speed tests. So it's obviously checking your background.
It's a dev build. This is not the finalized software. This is a dev build, isn't it?
Yeah, it does look quite nice from the video clip from the back. It's a lot slimmer than I expected the back to be for some, even though it is just a screen. It's got that PlayStation sleek sci-fi aesthetic attached to it.
Do the Switch thing. Give me a little kickstand and so you can put things like Netflix on it. So if this is you're using this as a travel device, you just plonk it on your table and there we go. I'm now watching Netflix.
And you can't get Netflix on the Switch still to this day.
Yeah,
which is such a weird oversight.
Or YouTube. So you could buy this. You're on your travels, put it down and watch Helix Plays Games.
You could indeed.
And Sony, for God's sakes, just let us connect any Bluetooth headphones. Just
do it.
Although
they did announce their official Sony PlayStation headphones.
I'm fine. I'm fine with them having the official ones. Don't be twats. Let me use what I've already got.
Be twats. And definitely don't be it when it comes to introducing a new technical powerhouse, because the second rumor of the week is that the reported PlayStation 5 Pro hardware model is due November 2024. So according to Tom Henderson, who is obviously quite good report for the Inside Gaming, he scribed an article basically saying about the upcoming Project Q we know is coming this year, with the planned PS5 Pro coming for next year. Details are scarce at the moment, but apparently we're looking at 2024 with 4K optional 8K modes, essentially, which you'd expect, and the easy ability for accelerated ray tracing and higher resolution. Just what I'd expect from a Pro. Do you think 2024 sounds about the right date?
Could be, yeah. I think though they can't pitch this too close to the PS5. I think it needs to be a absolute significant no holds barred machine. So we're talking. I think that to make this point have a purpose, It needs to basically be able to run anything that could come out reasonably this generation at 4K,
Mm,
60, with HDR, with ray tracing. This needs to be a no compromise box
mm,
because the PS5 is already an amazing bit of tech.
yeah. Well,
I,
that's it. Do we
I,
need it?
and honestly, just forget about it. No one cares about 8K. We can't even do 4K properly yet. Like, just forget about 8K. No, no, it's not needed.
Not
Yeah, I think
needed.
it's with resolution, you very much hit diminishing returns, and I don't think unless you are like a huge TV, like over 100 inches, you're not going to be able to notice the difference when you actually sat there playing a game. So
Certainly not.
focus on at that point, you need to focus on things like better textures, better lighting, which is where ray tracing comes in, having HDR, all that kind of the other side of the tech, rather than just putting more pixels on the screen.
Yeah, absolutely. Who needs
Yeah.
8K talking guns? Speaking of talking guns, High on Life, the game from Justin Roiland and Squanch Games that launched on Game Pass just before Christmas last year, is apparently coming to PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. The trophy list was spotted on a back-end version of the PlayStation Store, so it's very much legit. It's just a case of when, if not why. Of course, game's a bit odd now because it did really good for Game Pass, but then Justin Roiland's got in a bit of trouble since then, or reported trouble, we should say. He's left the studio. Rick and Morty and stuff's going through a whole refresh, apparently with the same creative team. He didn't have much input. But in terms of the game, do you think the game's been tainted a little bit since its high praise on Xbox? We have a first look up on the channel. We had a great time with it. What do you think? Is this destined to maybe get a sequel still, or do you think it'll land with the same impact on PlayStation, or is it too soured now? Or do you think gamers just don't care?
I think it'd be fine. I think most people probably aren't aware of the Justin Roiland stuff. There's a lot of people who will be aware of it and don't care. And the studio have done a lot to distance themselves from him.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're very much trying to make it clear that he wasn't actually as involved in the game as you think. It's clearly his style of humor.
Yeah.
But there's more that took his style of humor. It's not like he sat there and wrote every single line.
Mm-hmm.
He's not the guy who coded the game. He was involved, but I think it'll be fine. It, it's a good, it's a great. I think it's a really good Game Pass game. I'm not sure how that will translate to sales. If it's PlayStation Plus,
Mm.
you've got a winner on your hands. If this comes out in like 60 quid, I think it might not sell as well as I hope. It's
Yeah.
fun, but it's not. It's not an amazing game. It doesn't. It's if you like a basic by the book kind of first person shooter with Justin Roiland's comedy, you're gonna enjoy yourself.
Yeah. I think the first one was
I
played.
like it. I like his comedy. I sometimes find it a bit grating though for
Mm.
for an extended period of time.
I get that. I can see that. I can see that. One of the things we should probably point out as well is the High on Life does have its DLC High on Knife coming out at some point. It was at the Xbox showcase, so my guess is this PlayStation reveal might come in line with that kind of horror DLC that they're adding in. It could be a good timely thing to maybe bring people on board and say it's got like additional features, no doubt probably a patch and updates to go along with it as well. But yeah, High on Knife, High on Life, high on talking the PS, Richie, because that has been it for episode number 58 of your weekly PlayStation podcast, where we round up all the juicy PlayStation news for your listening and viewing pleasure right here on YouTube and up there in podcast services in the clouds. Don't forget to leave us a comment, like, subscribe, share with all of your friends. If you are listening on podcast services, do feel free to leave us a review, give us 5 stars. It helps other people find us in the algorithm. If you're following us on social media at Helix Plays Games, share, tag us, comment on it. The more interaction we get, the more the channel will grow and will help find new audiences. We get close to that 2,000 mark. We want to get that 2K at some point soon. But thank you very much for everyone for tuning in for this week's episode. Rob will of course be on XPass yesterday. We'll have a live stream later on this week, so don't forget to check that out. We didn't even mention it actually, but last week we played, I was going to say Grand Theft Auto for some reason, but that's so, God, that time flew by. That time has flew by. GTA 5 and Exo Primal. We had a great time with Exo Primal, but I'd imagine we cover that more on XPass because it's on Game Pass currently, so that's where we played it. But we'll be back this week, Thursday or Friday, no doubt. Have a great week, folks. My name's been Chris.
And I've been Richie.
We've been talking the PS, and remember that whatever makes you the happiest. Have a great week, everyone. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.